The combat hall on Orbital Station Helix 9 stank of recycled air and arrogance. Instructor Viros strutted across the polished floor, his scaled form towering 3 meters high, natural armor glinting under harsh lights. He was a legend here, untouchable, undefeated, and he made sure everyone knew it. Before we see how that legend fell, don't forget to hit the subscribe button to catch what happens next. 70 cadets from 40 worlds gathered information. Lorraine pressed her secondary breathing slits closed, her 3 eyes tracking Viros with weary recognition. Next to her, Clix, a tentacled Methodian, coiled his appendages nervously. They both knew what was coming. Another war story about Viros the Mighty. Gather close, larvae, Viros commanded, his 4 vocal cords projecting maximum authority. Today I share wisdom bought with blood and fire. The cadets shuffled forward. They always did. I see we have a new face among us. His primary eyes locked onto the back of the formation. Step forward, cadet. The crowd parted. She was tiny, maybe half Viros's height, with a frame so slight Lorraine worried a strong breeze might snap her in half. Her skin was warm brown, smooth and completely unarmored.
No cálice, no exoskeleton, no protective membrane.
Just vulnerable flesh wrapped in a gray training suit. State your designation, Viros ordered. Cadet Maya Torres, sir. Transferred from Earth's colonial marine program. Silence crashed over the hall. Earth, human, Deathworlder. Viros's mandibles spread in a predatory grin. A human. How delightful. He circled her slowly. Tell me, cadets, what do you know about humans? Clix raised a tentacle. They come from a high-gravity world, sir. Earth measures 1.2 standard G. Correct. What else? A crystalline shard named Prism chimed in. Extreme weather patterns. Hurricanes, tornadoes, frozen water falling from the sky. Indeed. And yet, despite coming from this brutal nightmare world, they're not particularly impressive, are they? He gestured at Maya with one massive claw. No natural weapons. No armor plating. No venom sacs. They're practically defenseless. Maya stood perfectly still, face unreadable, but her hands hung loose at her sides. Too relaxed. I've killed humans before, you know? Viros said it casually. During the border wars, they die just as easily as anyone else. Easier, even. Lorraine's stomach sacks clenched. 12 of them, to be precise. Patrol unit. Caught them in an ambush near the Kepler belt. They fought hard, I'll give them that. Lots of screaming, lots of begging. But in the end, he made a crushing gesture. Soft flesh tears so very easily. Maya's expression still hadn't changed. Sir, Click's voice shook. Is this really appropriate? This is education. This is reality. War is brutal. War is final. And if you want to survive, you need to understand that reputation means nothing. The so-called scary humans, they bleed. They break. They die. He turned back to Maya. Isn't that right, human? She met his gaze with those strange, forward-facing predator eyes. You killed 12 humans in an ambush, sir? I did. And you're proud of that? Viros's scales shifted through 2 threat colors. I'm proud of surviving. I'm proud of winning. Maya nodded slowly. Can I ask what unit they were from? Does it matter? Professional curiosity, sir. He waved a dismissive appendage. Some colonial defense force. Barely trained militia. They probably picked up their weapons the week before. Easy prey. I see. And when you killed them, did you give them a chance to surrender? The temperature dropped. Viros's scales stood on end. This is combat training, not a philosophy seminar. Because you ambushed untrained militia? Because I was superior. Were you, though? Nobody talked back to Viros. Nobody. What did you say? His voice dropped to a hiss. Maya shrugged. Just seems odd to brag about it, sir. Killing unarmed colonists from ambush. Not exactly impressive. Viros's entire body went rigid. His scales shifted through 3 colors in rapid succession. You dare? You insignificant little meat sack. You stand here in my hall and insult me? Not insulting, sir. Just observing. I could crush you right now. With one hand. Maya's mouth curved slightly. You could try. Viros, Lorraine heard herself say. Maybe we should continue with scheduled training. But Viros wasn't listening. His pride had been pricked. And wounded predators lash out. You want to test yourself against me, human? You want to prove your species isn't the fragile joke I know you to be. He gestured to the sparring circle. Let's settle this properly. You and me. Right now. Maya glanced at the circle, then back at Viros. I should mention, sir, that I'm not militia. I'm a trained Marine. 3 years active duty, 2 tours in the outer reaches. I don't care if you're the supreme commander of Earth's entire military. Viros roared. In that circle. Now. She sighed. Actually sighed. Understood, sir. Standard sparring rules or no rules? Real combat. First one unable to continue loses. Clicks grabbed Lorraine's arm. We have to stop this. He's going to hurt her. I don't think she's the one we need to worry about, Lorraine whispered, because something had shifted in Maya's posture. Nothing obvious. But suddenly she didn't look small anymore. She looked focused, dangerous, like a weapon someone had just armed. They entered the circle from opposite sides. Viros towered over her, easily 3 times her mass, covered in armor plating that had deflected plasma rounds. His claws extended, each one sharp enough to pierce hull plating. Maya just stood there, empty-handed, waiting. Last chance to back down, human, Viros growled. Apologize, and maybe I'll go easy on you. She tilted her head. You said you killed 12 humans in an ambush, right? I did. Then I think I owe you something. Oh? And what's that? Her smile widened. A fair fight. Viros lunged. Fast. His primary claw swept toward Maya's head with enough force to decapitate most species. She wasn't there anymore. One moment standing still, the next ducked under his strike and pivoted to his side. Her hand jabbed upward into the gap where his arm plates connected to his shoulder joint. Viros howled. His arm went limp. Nerve cluster, Maya said conversationally, already moving. Every species has them. You just need to know where to look. He spun, trying to catch her with his tail. Maya jumped, not over it, under it. Rolling beneath the strike, she came up inside his guard. Her elbow drove into his lower thorax. The air rushed out of him in a wheeze. And everyone needs to breathe. That's pretty universal too. The fight lasted 32 seconds. 32 seconds of Viros trying desperately to land a single hit while Maya dismantled him piece by piece. Every strike was precise. Every movement calculated. She wasn't fighting angry or scared. She was fighting efficient. A knee to his joint capsule. A strike to his optical cluster. A sweep using his own momentum. Then, finally, she was behind him, arm wrapped around his throat in a hold that looked almost gentle. Tap out, sir, she said quietly. Or I can put you to sleep. Your choice. Viros struggled for 3 seconds before survival instincts overrode pride. He tapped twice. Maya released him immediately and stepped back, hands raised. Silence. Absolute silence. Viros lay gasping, defeated, humiliated. The great warrior brought down by a single human woman in less than a minute. Maya extended her hand to help him up. No triumph. No gloating. Just professional courtesy. Viros stared at that hand like it was radioactive. I think, Maya said softly, that maybe those 12 humans deserved better than an ambush, and maybe you should stop bragging about it. She walked out of the circle, out of the hall, her footsteps echoing in shocked silence. Clicks turned to Lorraine, all 7 eyes wide. Did that just happen? It happened. Should we help Viros up? Lorraine looked at their instructor, still sprawled on the floor. Let him sit for a while. I think he needs time to reflect. And that's when Lorraine learned something important about humans. About Deathworlders. Size doesn't matter. Armor doesn't matter. Natural weapons don't matter. What matters is training, experience, and the will to win. And humans had all 3 in abundance. She couldn't wait to see what Maya Torres did next. 3 days later, the entire station was still buzzing. You couldn't walk through a corridor without hearing whispers about the fight, each retelling more elaborate than the last. Lorray sat in the commissary poking at alleged food, listening to Clix dissect the fight for the 20th time. The way she moved, though, he said, appendages waving. I've studied 47 different combat styles, and I couldn't identify what she was using. Probably because she made it up as she went along, said a voice behind them. They both jumped. Maya Torres stood there holding a tray, looking amused. Mind if I sit? Clix immediately cleared space, shoving 3 other cadets down the bench. Yes. No. Please do. Maya slid across from Lorray. Her portions were tiny, maybe a quarter of what Lorray needed metabolically. Sorry if we were talking about you, Lorray said. Everyone's kind of obsessed. I noticed. The stares were a hint. Maya picked at something green on her plate. Can I ask you something? Clix leaned forward. That nerve cluster strike, is that standard human combat technique? Because I've analyzed 17 species anatomies, and I can't figure out how you identified it so quickly. Maya thought before answering. Not really a technique. More like applied biology. Every joint needs nerves. Every nerve cluster has a location. You just need to know where to look and hit hard enough. But Viros has armor. Armor has gaps. Otherwise you couldn't move. She demonstrated with her arm. Anywhere something bends, there's a weak point. Basic physics. Lorray shook her head. You make it sound simple. It is simple. Complicated, but simple. Maya smiled. People think fighting is about strength or speed. It's not. It's about understanding systems. Your opponent is a biological system. Find the failure points, exploit them, system shuts down. Clix scribbled frantically on his datapad. Is that what they teach in Earth's military? Lorray asked. Part of it. But I grew up in a rough neighborhood in Massachusetts. You learn to fight smart when you're smaller than everyone else. She paused. Plus, my older brother was a Marine. He taught me before he shipped out. The past tense hung heavy. Was? Lorray whispered. Maya's jaw tightened. He died 4 years ago, ambushed during a peacekeeping mission. Him and his whole unit. 12 Marines, caught by surprise, killed before they could draw weapons. Lorray's circulatory system accelerated.
Walbowmans.
An ambush. 4 years ago. Oh no, Clix whispered. The 12 humans that Viros. Yeah. Maya's voice was flat. When I heard his speech, heard the location, the circumstances, the timeline, I did the math. Same sector. Same time frame. Same body count. Silence pressed down. That's why you challenged him, Lorray said. I didn't challenge him. He challenged me. I just accepted. Maya looked up, eyes hard. My brother Jake was 23. He joined to protect colonists. He was funny and kind and made the best pancakes. And Viros ambushed him and 11 others, then spent years bragging about it. I'm sorry, Lorray said. Don't be sorry. Be better. That's what Jake would say. Don't waste energy on anger. Use it to improve. The cafeteria announcement system crackled. Cadet Torres, report to administration level immediately. Maya sighed. Well, here we go. Guess I'm getting expelled. What? No. Clix's tentacles flailed. You were defending yourself. Doesn't matter. I embarrassed a senior instructor. She stood. It was worth it, though. Wait. Lorray grabbed her arm, immediately releasing. Human skin was weirdly warm. You knew this would happen? And you did it anyway? Maya shrugged. Like I said. Worth it. She walked away. Clix turned to Lorray. We have to do something. Like what? We're cadets. We have voices. We have testimony. His eyes gleamed. And we have access to the security footage. That got Lorray's attention. You recorded the fight? The whole security system records everything automatically. Clix was already pulling up files. If we can get this footage to the right people, show them what really happened, maybe they'll reconsider. Or maybe they'll expel us too. Then we get expelled together. Clix extended a tentacle. What do you say? Lorraine looked at that tentacle. Thought about Maya walking toward punishment for doing what was right. Thought about her brother and 11 other Marines. Thought about Viros bragging while bodies cooled in space. She gripped Click's tentacle firmly. I'm in. The administration level was restricted, but Click's had connections that translated into access codes. They slipped through service corridors, avoiding checkpoints, reaching a ventilation shaft overlooking the hearing room just as proceedings began. Through the grating, Lorraine could see Maya at attention before 3 officials. Commander Yelrix, Vice Commander Thorpe, and surprisingly, Captain Amanda Wright, a human liaison officer wearing Earth's Colonial Command uniform. Viros sat to the side, arm in a medical brace, looking smug. Cadet Torres, Yelrix's voice echoed. You stand accused of assaulting a superior officer. How do you plead? Not guilty, sir. Viros's mandibles clicked with amusement. The evidence suggests otherwise, Thorpe burbled. Instructor Viros testified you attacked without provocation. That's incorrect, sir. Instructor Viros challenged me to combat. I accepted. The engagement was consensual. Lies. Viros rose. I merely asked for a demonstration. She attacked viciously. Instructor Viros, Captain Wright cut in. Can you explain why a demonstration required no rules and real combat conditions? Viros's scales rippled. The human needed to understand battle reality. By fighting you, a trained instructor with 30 years experience. Wright's eyebrow rose. That seems excessive. I was teaching her humility. By threatening to crush her with one hand? Wright pulled up a datapad. We have 17 witnesses who heard you say that. Viros's scales shifted rapidly. Captain Wright. Yelrix held up a hand. Please allow me to conduct this hearing. Of course, Commander. Wright sat back, but her eyes never left Viros. Cadet Torres, Yelrix continued, even if combat was consensual, you used excessive force. Instructor Viros required medical attention. Minor injuries, sir.
Temporary nerve disruption, bruised breathing organ.
He was cleared within 6 hours. Maya's recall was perfect. I used precisely the force necessary to secure submission without permanent damage. Standard doctrine. That's not the point. Then what is the point, sir? Instructor Viros initiated combat, set the terms, and lost. If that's punishable, perhaps the problem is his judgment. Silence. Clicks nudged Lorraine. Now. Send it now. Lorraine's manipulators trembled as she transmitted the security footage to Wright's datapad. Wright's eyes widened as she watched. Commander, Wright said quietly, you need to see this. Security footage from the full session. The footage played on the main display. Viros's voice boomed through speakers. I've killed humans before, 12 of them to be precise. Caught them in an ambush. Soft flesh tears so very easily. Then Maya's questions. The escalation. The challenge. The fight showing clearly who initiated everything. When it finished, the silence was crushing. Yelrix's scales turned sickly gray. Instructor Viros. Anything to add to your testimony? Viros's mouth opened and closed. That footage doesn't. You have to understand. The context, Captain Wright said, her voice dangerous, is that you bragged about killing 12 human Marines in an ambush, then threatened and physically challenged a cadet when questioned. Is that accurate? She disrespected me. You murdered her brother. Pause. Wright was on her feet now. Staff Sergeant Jake Torres, Colonial Marines. Died with his unit 3 years ago in Sector 7. You just confessed to killing them. On record. In front of witnesses. Color drained from Viros's scales. That was war. I was following orders. The border wars ended 4 years ago. That wasn't war. That was murder. Wright turned to Yelrix. Commander, I formally request Instructor Viros be detained pending investigation for war crimes. Now wait. Viros backed toward the door. You can't. I have rights. Security officers entered. Human. Both carrying restraint equipment. As they led Viros away, his protests echoing. Maya remained at attention. Her face showed nothing. "Cadet Torres," Yelric said finally, "you're dismissed. All charges dropped. And, off the record, impressive work." Maya saluted. "Thank you, sir." "Torres," Wright called. "A word." They stepped into the corridor. Through the shaft, Lorray and Clix barely heard them. "Your brother was a good man," Wright said softly. "I served with him. He talked about his little sister constantly. Said you'd change the galaxy." Maya's voice came thick. "I'm trying, ma'am. You're doing more than trying. Jake would be proud." Wright paused. "Between you and me, I've been tracking Viros for 2 years. We knew he was involved but couldn't prove it. You just handed us everything." "Happy to help, ma'am." "Oh, and Torres? Those 2 cadets in the ventilation shaft? Tell them they're not as sneaky as they think. But also tell them thank you." Maya looked up at their hiding spot and grinned. "Will do, ma'am." Lorray and Clix scrambled out so fast Lorray left Scales behind. Later that night, Maya appeared at their door. "Hey," she said. "Wanted to say thanks. For the footage. For caring." "We didn't really do anything," Lorray protested. "You did more than you think. Most people see wrong and look away. You looked closer. That matters." "What happens now?" Clix asked. "Trial. Prison. Maybe execution." Maya's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Won't bring Jake back. But at least he gets justice. And you? I keep training. Keep learning. Keep trying to be worth the sacrifice." She pushed off the doorframe. "And maybe help a few people along the way." She started to leave, then turned. "The trick to fighting isn't being strongest or fastest. It's being the one who refuses to quit. Remember that." As she walked away, Clix turned to Lorray. "I like her. Everyone does. She's making us all better." Lorray settled into her rest pod thinking about Maya and her brother. About Viros and his fall. About justice and courage. Humans weren't scary because they were strong. They were scary because they were stubborn. Because they refused to accept defeat or injustice. Because they looked at impossible odds and said, "Not today." And if you gave them a reason to fight, they'd move mountains. Or move an arrogant instructor right into a prison cell. The question was, what happened when humanity decided you were the enemy? 6 months later, Orbital Station Helix 9 felt different. The change was subtle but pervasive. Lorray noticed it in how cadets moved with more purpose, how training sessions had shed their performative edge for practical application. Maya Torres's impact had rippled outward. Lorray stood at the observation window overlooking the training hall. Below, 70 cadets practiced close-quarters combat under Instructor Kelf, demanding but fair, challenging without cruelty. "Impressive, isn't it?" Clix appeared beside her. "Very different from Viros's approach." "Everything's different now." Clix gestured toward the floor. "Applications to combat training have tripled. Everyone wants to learn from the station that produced Maya Torres. She's not here anymore. Doesn't matter. The story is, it's become legend." Lorray's datapad chimed. A message from Earth Colonial Command. It was from Maya. "Lorray and Clix, hope this finds you well. After Viros's conviction, Earth Command started investigating other potential war crimes from the border wars. Your testimony and the precedent it set opened doors that had been sealed by diplomatic red tape. So far, we've reopened 43 cases, 17 arrests, 5 already to trial. None of this would have happened without you. You started something bigger than any of us realized. I'm teaching now at Advanced Combat School in Massachusetts. Rewarding work, though I think of Jake every day. Come visit if you're ever aside. I'll make you those pancakes I mentioned. Fair warning. Earth gravity hasn't gotten lighter. Stay safe. Maya." Lorray read it twice, then showed Clix. 43 cases, Clix whispered. "We helped start something that big. Maya started it. We just helped."
No.
Clix turned all 7 eyes toward her. "She started it by refusing to let Viros's crimes go unpunished. But we chose to help. We risked everything for people we'd never met. That choice mattered. Movement in the hall caught Lorray's attention. A new group entering transfer students. Among them was a human, tall and broad-shouldered, moving with characteristic ease. Another human cadet, Clix observed. That's the fourth this rotation. Words spreading about what happened here. Good. The galaxy needs to know justice is possible. That standing up isn't suicide. That individuals can make a difference. The human cadet looked up, spotted them, and offered a slight nod. Lorray nodded back. That evening in the commissary, Clix spoke thoughtfully. I've been thinking about after graduation. We've got 8 more months. I know, but I can't just go back to my original plan. Commercial shipping logistics. It feels small now. Lorray understood. Having touched something important, something real, normal felt like betrayal. What are you considering? Interstellar Justice Corps, maybe? Or Colonial Advocacy Services? Something where I can help people without voices. That's perfect for you. What about you? Lorray stared at her food. I think I want to teach. Not combat, but ethics. Decision-making under pressure. How to recognize when silence is complicity. The galaxy needs more of that. The galaxy needs more people willing to stand up when standing up is hard. A commotion at the entrance drew their attention. Cadets gathered around a view screen showing a news broadcast from Central Colonial Court. Another trial. Another border wars criminal being brought to justice. The prosecutor quoted legal precedent, specifically the Torres case. That's the 8th trial this month, someone said, all using the same framework. It's becoming routine, another added. Prosecuting this stuff didn't used to be possible. It became possible, Lorray said quietly, because someone decided it should be, and others chose to help make it real. The crowd turned to look at her, recognition sparking. You were there, a young Draven said reverently. You helped make this happen. Maya Torres made it happen. I just provided documentation. You did more than that, the Draven insisted. You showed us we don't have to accept injustice. That courage doesn't require being human or from a Deathworld. It just requires choosing to act. Later, in her quarters, Lorray stood at her window looking at stars. Somewhere Maya was teaching. Somewhere 43 investigations were proceeding. Somewhere the galaxy was changing. All because one human refused to let her brother's death be meaningless. All because 2 cadets chose to help. All because doing right mattered more than staying safe. Her datapad chimed. Another message from Captain Wright. Lorray, your actions created a template being used across multiple jurisdictions. The way you obtained and presented evidence is being taught at advocacy schools throughout the sector. You're making a difference beyond what you realize. Also, I'm retiring from active military next year, taking a position as prosecutor for interstellar justice, heading the War Crimes Division. I said yes, because of you and Clix and Maya, because you showed me this work matters. Thank you for the reminder, Captain Amanda Wright. Lorray read it 3 times, feeling something warm building in her chest. This was legacy. This was what happened when people chose courage over comfort. She pulled up her course catalog. There, buried in electives, Ethics in Modern Warfare Instructor, Torres, M. Maya was teaching remotely, sharing her perspective with stations throughout the sector. Lorray registered immediately. When Clix asked about it, she smiled. I want to learn from the best and understand how to teach what we learned. Good, because I signed up too, and convinced 17 others. Class is half full. Of course you did. Someone has to make sure her wisdom spreads. Besides, if we learned anything, it's that education matters. Teaching matters. Passing on how to choose courage. That might be the most important work there is. As the semester progressed, Lorray found herself transformed. The instructor on their screens wasn't the quiet cadet she'd first met. This Maya was passionate, articulate, willing to challenge assumptions and force difficult conversations. She talked about Jake often, not with grief but purpose, using his death as a teaching moment about the cost of complacency, the importance of questioning authority, the necessity of accountability. The hardest thing about ethics, Maya said in one lecture, isn't knowing what's right, is having the courage to act when the cost is high, when staying silent is easier, when speaking up might destroy your career. But here's what I learned from my brother and from those who helped me get justice. The cost of silence is always higher than the cost of courage. Always. Pause, because silence compounds. Every time we let something wrong pass unchallenged, we make the next wrong thing easier. You have a choice every day. Be complicit or be courageous. There's no neutral ground. Silence is a choice. Inaction is a choice. And those choices have consequences just as real as active choices. Lorraine took notes furiously. This wasn't just about military justice. This was about fundamental questions of how to exist in a complex universe. After one particularly intense lecture, Clix turned to Lorraine. We did that. We lived what she's teaching. We chose courage over comfort. And it changed everything, Lorraine agreed. For us. For Maya. For 43 investigations. For this entire station. Do you think we'll ever do something that's significant again? Lorraine looked around the classroom. Cadets from dozens of worlds, all engaged with ideas about justice and courage. I think we're doing it right now. By learning. By preparing to make those hard choices again when they come. Because they will come. Then we'd better be ready. We will be. Because we know it's possible. We know courage can win. That night, Lorraine composed a message to Maya. Instructor Torres, your class has changed how I think about everything. Not just ethics or justice, but what it means to live with integrity. You honored your brother by refusing to let his death be meaningless. You taught us that individual action can cascade into systemic change. Thank you. I'm going to spend my career teaching others what you taught me. Cadet Lorraine. The response came 3 days later. Lorraine, it's the worthiest work there is. Teach them to question. Teach them to stand up. Teach them that courage is a muscle that gets stronger with use. And teach them they're never alone. That somewhere in the galaxy, someone else is making the same hard choice. That we're all connected by these decisions. Jake used to say the galaxy doesn't need perfect heroes. It needs ordinary people willing to do one brave thing when it matters. You and Clix proved that. Now help others prove it too. Maya. As graduation approached, Lorraine stood at a crossroads. The comfortable career path she'd envisioned, logistics, administration, quiet competence, felt impossibly distant. She'd become someone who'd faced institutional power and won. Someone who'd traveled to a crushing Deathworld to testify for justice. Someone who'd helped change a sector's legal framework. She'd become someone who chose courage. And there was no going back. The graduation ceremony on Helix 9 was controlled chaos. 70 cadets from 40 worlds somehow formed orderly ranks despite wildly different environmental needs. Lorraine stood in dress uniform, her respiratory system processing recycled air that carried too many competing scent markers. Clix stood beside her, tentacles in formal configuration. Around them, beings of every description waited. Crystalline shards refracting light, gaseous ephemera in ceremonial vessels, massive Drakai requiring reinforced flooring. The graduating class of the year, everything changed. Commander Yelrix stood at the podium, his ice-blue scales catching light. He'd changed since Viros's arrest, become more thoughtful, less certain of his own infallibility. Cadets, Yelrix began. You graduate into a galaxy that has changed significantly during your time here. Changed because of events within these walls. Changed because individuals among you chose courage when silence would have been easier. Every eye shifted toward Lorraine and Clix. The Viros incident has become a case study taught at command schools throughout the sector. Not just as justice delayed but served, but as a lesson in moral courage. In the power of individuals to challenge institutional failures. He found Lorraine's gaze directly. Some of you will pursue military careers. Others diplomacy, science, commerce. But all of you carry the knowledge that your actions matter. That one person or two, or a small group willing to stand can reshape reality. The ceremony preceded speeches, credential presentations, academic recognitions. But Lorraine barely heard. Her mind was on futures and choices and the weight of what came next. When her name was called, she walked to the podium on uncertain legs. Yelrix handed her the certification datapad. "Well done, Cadet Leray," he said formally. Then quieter. "You saved this institution's honor. Don't forget that." She'd been offered 3 positions. A logistics coordinator role, safe, comfortable, exactly what she'd planned. A teaching position at a minor facility, respectable, stable, forgettable. And a third option, encrypted and urgent. An invitation to join the Interstellar Justice Corps as investigative advocate, working directly under Captain Amanda Wright in War Crimes Division. Difficult, dangerous, important. She'd accepted immediately. After the ceremony, as cadets dispersed to families and celebrations, Leray and Clix found themselves alone in the observation lounge overlooking the central dock. Ships of every configuration moved through organized chaos. "I'm scared," Leray admitted. "Of the job. Of failing. Of not living up to what we started. Of letting down everyone counting on the precedent we set." Clix rested a tentacle on her shoulder. "You know what Maya would say?" "What?" "That fear proves you understand the stakes. That only people who don't grasp significance aren't scared." His eyes gleamed. "You're going to be brilliant. You're going to help people who have no other advocates. You're going to make the galaxy better in ways you can't imagine." "What about you?" "Final decision. Advocacy services. Working with displaced populations in conflict zones." His tentacles coiled nervously. "Terrifying. But exactly what I need to be doing." They watched ships depart in comfortable silence. "Do you think she'll be there?" Clix asked. "At Justice Corps orientation?" "Maya? Doubt it. She's teaching, building her program. She's got her own work." Leray's datapad chimed. Priority message. Earth Colonial Command. She opened it. Her respiratory system stopped. "Leray and Clix, congratulations on graduation. I heard you both accepted justice advocacy positions. That makes me incredibly proud. I'm writing because I have news, and I wanted you to hear it from me before it goes public. They've asked me to take over as Director of Training for the entire Colonial Defense Program. All stations, all sectors. Massive undertaking. Honestly not sure I'm qualified. But they think what we made happen at Helix 9 proves I can transform institutional culture." I said yes. Because I keep thinking about Jake, about what he believed was possible, about how he thought one person could change everything if they refused to accept the way things were. My first initiative is galaxy-wide ethics training. Mandatory for all instructors, all command staff, all authority positions. Using our case, Viros, the trial, everything as foundational example. I've been asked to recommend people to help develop and implement this. People who've demonstrated moral courage. People who understand doing right sometimes requires sacrifice. I recommended you both. You'll receive official offers within days. It would mean working with me directly for at least 2 years, traveling to stations throughout the sector, training the trainers. Showing them what ethical leadership actually looks like. It's not the positions you've already accepted. It's bigger, more demanding, more visible. I completely understand if you decline. You've already done so much. But I wanted you to know you have this option. Because you've earned it. Whatever you choose, I'm grateful. For your courage when courage wasn't safe. For standing with me when standing alone would have been easier. Thank you for being the kind of people the galaxy needs more of. Maya Torres, Director of Training, Designate, Colonial Defense Forces. Leray read it twice, then handed the datapad to Clix. His tentacles trembled. She wants us to transform the entire Colonial Defense Program, Clix whispered. All of it. Every station. Every instructor. Every student. She wants to make sure what happened with Viros never happens again. Anywhere. That's enormous. That's galaxy-changing. That's terrifying. Are you going to accept? Leray looked at stars. Vast darkness punctuated by points of light. Each representing worlds, systems, billions of lives affected by choices made by people in authority. People who needed to learn that authority required responsibility. That power demanded ethics. She thought about Jake Torres, who died protecting people he'd never met. About Maya, who honored his memory by refusing to let injustice stand. About herself and Clix, who chose courage when courage was needed. And she thought about all the future cadets entering training halls across the galaxy. Students who deserved instructors who valued their lives. Beings who needed advocates willing to stand for justice even when costly. Yes, she said finally. I'm going to accept. How could I not? Same, Clix agreed. We started this together. We should finish it together. I don't think we'll ever finish it, Lorraine said softly. This kind of work never ends. It just continues, one choice at a time, one stand at a time, one student at a time. Then we'd better get started. The official offers arrived 3 days later with travel authorizations to Earth. Lorraine and Clix stood at the departure gate, possessions packed, futures uncertain but purposeful. A view screen showed another news broadcast, the 47th case proceeding to trial under their precedent. A 70-year-old atrocity finally seeing justice. We did that, Clix said quietly.
No, l'arae corrective.
It started with Maya refusing to let her brother's death be meaningless. We just chose to help, to amplify what she started. And now we're going to make it systemic.
Permanent.
Impossible for another Viros to flourish. That's the idea. The boarding call chimed. They moved toward the transport that would take them to Earth, to Maya, to work that would define their lives. As they settled into acceleration couches, Lorraine felt strange calm. This was right. This was exactly where she was supposed to be. The transport lifted from the station, engines building to full power. Lorraine watched through the viewport as Helix 9 fell away, the place where everything changed, where a small human woman defeated a legend, where 2 cadets chose courage, where justice proved stronger than power. Do you think we'll ever come back? Clix asked. Eventually, when we're training new instructors, making sure they understand what we learned. Lorraine smiled. Making sure they teach courage instead of compliance. Teaching them that individuals matter. Teaching them that standing up is always worth it. The transport jumped to FTL, and Helix 9 vanished in quantum blur. But its lessons remained, carrying forward into a future shaped by choices made in a combat hall 6 months ago. And somewhere ahead, Maya Torres was waiting to show them how to turn those lessons into galactic transformation. How to make courage contagious. How to prove that ordinary people could change everything. One student at a time. One choice at a time. Forever. 3 weeks later, Lorraine stood in a training facility in Massachusetts, Earth's crushing gravity pressing through her support harness. Before her stood 20 instructors from stations across the sector. Beings of every description, all here to learn how to teach ethics, instill courage, create environments where justice could flourish. Maya Torres stood at the front, no longer the quiet cadet. This Maya was confident, authoritative, a leader who'd earned her position through demonstrated excellence. Welcome, Maya said. You're here because Colonial Defense has decided what happened at Helix 9 can never happen again. We need instructors who understand their first duty isn't to authority. It's to students they serve, to truth they're supposed to uphold, to justice they're meant to protect. She gestured to Lorraine and Clix. These 2 cadets changed everything by making one choice. They saw injustice and refused to ignore it. They risked their futures for people they'd never met. They showed us courage doesn't require being biggest or strongest. It just requires being willing to act. Maya's eyes found Lorraine's, recognition, gratitude, shared purpose passing between them. Over the next 3 months, we're going to teach you how to create that courage in your students. How to build environments where standing up is celebrated, not punished. How to be the instructors we all wish we'd had. The training session began. Lorraine found herself standing before beings who'd taught for decades, sharing the story of that day, describing the fear, uncertainty, the moment of choice when sending footage could have destroyed their careers, and describing what came after, the trial, the justice, the 47 cases, the systemic change, showing them courage had consequences beyond prediction. that individual actions could cascade into galactic transformation. When she finished, a Draven instructor raised a scaled hand. How did you know it would work? That standing up wouldn't just ruin you without changing anything? We didn't, Lorraine said honestly. We had no guarantee, but we knew for certain that staying silent would guarantee nothing changed. So we chose the path that at least had the possibility of justice. Even if it cost you everything? Even then. Because some things matter more than personal safety. The Draven nodded slowly, understanding dawning. The training continued for months, intensive, exhausting, absolutely necessary. Lorraine and Clix shared their story hundreds of times to thousands of instructors, watching understanding spread like light, pushing back darkness. And slowly, across the sector, things changed. Reports came of students speaking up about misconduct, emboldened by knowledge their voices could matter. Of command staff implementing accountability measures. Of justice being pursued for wrongs that had festered for decades. The galaxy was learning courage was contagious. That justice was possible. That individuals could change systems if they refused to accept corruption as inevitable. On the one-year anniversary of Viros's conviction, Maya called a meeting of her core training team Lorraine, Clix, Captain Wright, and a dozen others who'd built the ethics program from nothing into galaxy-wide standard. I want to show you something, Maya said, pulling up a star map. The map lit with hundreds of markers scattered across dozens of sectors, each representing a station that had implemented new training protocols. Each a place where students were learning to value justice over compliance, courage over comfort. This is what you started, Maya said, looking at Lorraine and Clix. What we all built together. This is how we honor Jake and the others. By making sure their sacrifice meant something. By creating a galaxy where that injustice becomes impossible. Lorraine stared at the spreading constellation of change, tears forming in her ocular membranes. They'd done this, together, taken one terrible incident and transformed it into systemic reform. Jake would be proud, Maya said softly. He always believed ordinary people could do extraordinary things if they refused to accept the way things were. You proved him right. We all proved him right, Lorraine corrected. Every person who stood up, every instructor who changed, every student who found courage. This isn't about us. It's about everyone who chose to be part of change. True, Maya acknowledged. But it started with you. With two cadets who decided justice mattered more than safety. She moved to the window overlooking Earth's vast oceans, the planet that had birthed humanity, that crushing Deathworld that had forged them into beings of extraordinary resilience. I think about him every day, Maya said quietly. About who he was, what he believed. About how close his death came to being meaningless. Just another casualty lost in bureaucratic indifference. She turned back. But it wasn't meaningless. Because you wouldn't let it be. Because when I stood up, you stood with me. And now his legacy is this. She gestured to the star map. A galaxy learning to value courage. To protect those who speak truth. To pursue justice even when difficult. That's the memorial he deserved. Not a statue but actual change. Real transformation. A better future built on the foundation of his sacrifice. Lorraine felt something fierce building in her chest. This was legacy. This was what happened when people chose courage over comfort. So what happens now? Clix asked. We've implemented the program sector-wide. What's next? Maya's smile was fierce and determined. Now we make sure it lasts. We train the next generation of instructors. We institutionalize these principles so deeply they become culture, not just response to one incident. We make courage normal, justice expected, accountability inevitable. And then we do it again, in the next sector, and the one after that. We keep spreading this until it reaches every corner of the galaxy. Until no student faces what I faced. Until no family loses someone to preventable injustice. She looked at each of them. We started this because one instructor thought he was untouchable. We're going to finish it by making sure no one is untouchable. That accountability reaches everyone, regardless of rank or reputation or power. That's a lifetime's work, Wright observed. Then we'd better get started. As the meeting concluded, Lorraine found herself at the window beside Maya, looking at Earth's violent oceans, the crucible that forged humanity's resilience. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we'd stayed silent? Lorraine asked. Every day, Maya admitted. And every day I'm grateful you didn't. You gave me the chance to honor Jake properly, to turn his death into something that mattered. You don't need to repay it. You've transformed it into something bigger than any of us. We did it together, Maya corrected. That's the lesson. Individual courage matters, but collective action changes everything. You stood up, I stood up, Wright stood up, and together we became unstoppable. So we teach others to stand together. Exactly. We teach them they're never alone. That somewhere, someone else is making the same hard choice. That courage is contagious and justice is possible, and individuals absolutely can change systems if they refuse to accept corruption as inevitable. Lorraine thought about the spreading constellation on that star map, about thousands of students learning to value truth, about the future being built on foundations of courage. Jake would be proud, she said. He would be, Maya agreed. And more importantly, he'd tell us to keep going, to never stop fighting for what's right, to make sure his sacrifice, all the sacrifices, continue to mean something. She turned from the window. So that's what we'll do. Keep teaching, keep fighting, keep standing up every time it's needed, because that's what heroes do. Not the big, flashy heroes from stories, but the ordinary people who choose courage when courage is required. Heroes like you, Lorraine said. Heroes like us, Maya corrected. All of us together, building a better galaxy one choice at a time. And in that moment, standing on a crushing Deathworld beside a human who'd transformed personal tragedy into systemic justice, Lorraine understood something fundamental. Humans weren't terrifying because they were strong or fast or violent. They were terrifying because they never stopped, because they took pain and transmuted it into purpose, because they looked at impossible odds and said, not today, because they remembered, they always remembered, and they honored their dead not with monuments, but with action, with transformation, with relentless commitment to making sure the same tragedy never happened again. That was humanity's true power. Not physical strength, but absolute refusal to accept injustice as inevitable. And now, having learned that lesson, Lorraine carried that power too. They all did. The galaxy was changing. Not quickly, not easily, but genuinely, permanently. And it had all started with one human woman who refused to let her brother's death be meaningless. Who stood in a combat hall and said, "You could try." Who proved courage could win. That justice could prevail. That individuals could change everything. Ready to get back to work? Maya asked. Always, Lorraine replied. And together, they walked back to the sacred task of teaching courage to those who would carry it forward. Behind them, Earth's sun set over violent oceans. The same waters that had birthed humanity, taught them resilience, forged them into beings who refused to quit. The Deathworld that had given the galaxy its most terrifying gift. The knowledge that justice was possible, courage was contagious, and ordinary people could change everything. If they just refused to stay silent. If they just chose to stand up. If they just remembered that some things mattered more than safety. The work would continue. For years. For decades. Perhaps forever. But standing there on Earth, Lorraine felt no burden in that future. Only purpose. Only determination. Only the fierce joy of knowing her life would matter. That her choices would echo across stars. That she was part of something infinitely larger than herself. The stars wheeled overhead, indifferent and eternal. But beneath them, across 1,000 stations and 1,000,000 training halls, the galaxy was learning a lesson that would reshape its future. Heroes weren't born. They were made. One choice at a time. One stand at a time. One refusal to accept injustice at a time. And anyone, regardless of species, size, or strength, could choose to be one. All it took was courage. And courage, as it turned out, was the most contagious force in the universe. If this story moved you, if it made you think about courage and justice and the power of individuals to change systems, Don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Tell someone. Spread the message that standing up matters. Because somewhere right now, someone is facing their own moment of choice between silence and courage. They need to know that choosing courage is worth it. That speaking up can change everything. Your voice matters. Your choices matter. Never let anyone convince you otherwise. Drop a comment below. What would you stand up for? What injustice have you seen that needs someone brave enough to challenge it? And hit that subscribe button because the galaxy needs more heroes. It needs you. What will you do when your moment comes?